15 great games that you probably never played. Telltale Jurassic Park. Now, if you must have already played or at least heard about the Telltale Walking Dead franchise, Telltale is a video game company that basically makes the choices matter type of game. It's like an interactive movie where you are making the decisions for your characters. So, Telltale released this Jurassic Park game back in 2011, almost 15 years ago. Now, this isn't one of their greatest games, but when I tried it, it exceeded my expectations. Now, there's literally no gameplay here, just some QTEs which are not so good either, but it's okay. Though why I am recommending this game is because of its amazing story. The characters and plot are very interesting and definitely worth a try, and should have gotten more attention. Anyways, I think the game would have been better if it was more like Life is Strange, in which you controlled the characters and interacted with the environment. You could still have the dialogue choices and QTEs. Nonetheless, a great interactive movie-like game. But there's some problem. The game has been removed from Steam. Telltale went bankrupt a while ago and most of their games were removed from Steam. I don't see any option to buy it. Only option I could think of is trying to buy a key from a third-party site, but there are some unethical ways to do it too, though we are not going to talk about it. Let's move on to the second game on this list. Yakuza games. The Yakuza franchise is one of my favorites of all time. It's got a sensational story, amazing combat, an immersive world, and deep characters. If you're someone who enjoys anime and crime dramas, this is for you. It's rare for a game franchise to be so engaging with so many memorable moments. There are a lot of things to do in the dense world of these games. Even though the map is a little small, it is filled with a damn lot of activities. Toy car race tournaments, rhythm games with karaoke and dancing, cabaret and business management minigames, and secondary missions that can go from saving a girl from a cult or saving a little girl and her family from thugs. These game has a lot of content in the form of minigames and side quests, and every one of them feels whole. You can see that the devs really put a lot of thought into every aspect of these games. Though all these games are in Japanese and there is no English dub, but I am sure you would still enjoy them a damn lot. If you haven't played a single Yakuza game before, start from Yakuza 0. It's an amazing series. Batman Arkham Origins. Batman Arkham Origins is arguably one of the most underrated games of all time. I never understood the hate towards this game in the franchise. The music was astounding, the gameplay was improved, and the cutscenes were always fire. If you haven't played this game, you should definitely give it a try. Personally, I enjoyed this game more than Arkham Knight. Arkham Knight is great, but the tank missions are redundant. The same can be said about the fighting mechanics, but you are always able to make different combos. The game got a lot of hate at the time of release, being seen as a less impressive side game coming off the GOAT Arkham City. It holds up really well, with fun gameplay and an interesting story that have aged better than a lot of titles in this genre tend to. I would say they created it as a filler game to keep people busy until Arkham Knight. Shorter dev time and lower budget. It seems like an expansion pack to Arkham City. Story-wise, it provides a good origin for Joker's and Batman's relationship. According to people more knowledgeable about Batman lore, Origins has the best Joker and Bane outside of comics. Boss fights are the best in the series so far, with each one being different. Great crime reconstruction scenes. People just think of the Arkham games as a trilogy, but they always forget about this game. The boss fights of this game are the best in the series, not gonna lie. However, the progression system is terrible. It requires you to go through it in a linear manner, and some of the ranks in the Dark Knight system can be achieved in a handful of story beats. Miss them, and you can only attempt them again in New Game Plus. Though I would still recommend trying Arkham Origins.
Rumble!
Spec Ops: The Line. It's been, 13 years since we got this masterpiece of a game, and it still lingers in my mind from time to time. We will never again get anything like this, especially the story part, which to this game holds up very well. Spec Ops: The Line is a third-person shooter game set in a post-apocalyptic Dubai. You play as Captain Martin Walker, leading a Delta Force team into the city to search for Colonel John Conrad and his missing battalion, who were sent to evacuate civilians after a devastating sandstorm. As Walker progresses, he faces moral dilemmas, questioning his mission and his own sanity as he discovers the horrors of Conrad's actions and the consequences of his own choices. The game explores themes of morality, the effects of war on individuals, and the blurred lines between heroism and villainy. This third-person shooter has solid gameplay and decent enough mechanics and graphics for the time it was released. But the main meat of the game is its story, and man, it will hit you like a freight train if you are not ready for it. It is incredibly, relentlessly depressing and never lets up. It is very well told and goes into the horrors of Middle East conflicts for both soldiers and especially civilians in a way no game ever has and probably never will again. You will be forced to make some really messed up choices for the story, so be warned, though you will get an incredible story you will never experience elsewhere if you can stick through it. This game is an underrated masterpiece. At first, I did not enjoy it as I was very confused, but as I continued on, it became clearer. This is a game that will not leave my head, and I will be thinking back to it as I play other games. I really hope that the game will be buyable again, because everyone needs to experience this at least once. 20 out of 10 for me. Truly incredible, and I will never play it again, yet can't recommend it enough. As Dusk Falls is another choice matter type of game, and it's one of the most unique games I've ever played, more like a visual novel. The art style of As Dusk Falls breaks away from the traditional fully animated approach and instead embraces a motion comic art style. This unique blend of stop-motion animation and comic books creates a visually stunning experience. Though some people may not seem to like it, but I loved it. The voice acting in this game is really incredible. As Dusk Falls is all about choices. After all, the main thing you do in the game is make decisions that heavily impact how every scene plays out. Even choices that seem small sometimes end up being really important. So, you get plenty of influence over the main storyline. The tale revolves around two families who meet on one fateful day in 1998. The first half of the adventure shows what happened on that day. The second half is set many years later and shows how the events impacted those involved. It is a really well-done interactive story game. The decisions you make along the way really feel impactful, and there are many possible outcomes. You really grow to care for the main characters you play with and even some of the side ones. The graphics are a combination of beautifully static drawn characters with 3D environments. And the fact that you can play the game together with up to 7 other friends, either locally or online, makes for an even greater experience. Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Now hear me out, everyone must have at least played one Tomb Raider game in their life, but we are talking about the reboot trilogy here, especially Shadow of the Tomb Raider. If you keep the first two aside, I have seen many people criticizing the game for its story, but honestly, I loved it. Shadow of the Tomb Raider is a big improvement from Rise. It had a lot more tombs and exploration to do. It is all what a Tomb Raider game is about. This game tries to go for a more isolated Tomb Raider experience. While it's still nowhere near the originals in terms of atmosphere, it's at least nice to feel more Tomb Raider and less Uncharted. Combat feels quite a bit more fleshed out, stealth is massively improved, and Lara goes full Rambo in this game. It's really quite nice stealth, killing an enemy from a grassy wall and then quickly jumping out to headshot everyone. I definitely feel that Shadow has the strongest characterization of the 3 games. All the little moments between Lara and Jonah were genuinely touching. Their friendship is just so pure. It's also hands down the most visually impressive. Absolutely jaw-droppingly beautiful environments. Shadow felt like the closest thing out of the last 3 games to the old-school Tomb Raider games. While the puzzles could have been more challenging, it's nice to see that they made more of them this time around and you're not forced into a gunfight every 10 minutes. I'm sure this game has a lot of legitimate criticism, such as lack of innovation and being practically the same as the prior games in terms of gameplay mechanics, but the devs deserve credit for not making yet another third-person shooter. Here's to hoping the future Tomb Raider games will be more like this one, but with better gameplay elements and an overall improved design. Just Cause 3. Just Cause 3 is a great game. It's like GTA on a beautiful Mediterranean island with unbelievable movement mechanics and a lot of destruction. The gameplay is really fun and there's a ton of content to experience. For a 2015 game, the visuals are really impressive and the map is incredibly diverse and colorful, mixing mountains, seas, beautiful fields, forests, and cities of various sizes. using your grapple, guns, grenades, cars, or the awesome weaponized DLC Bavarian wingsuit, you can destroy trees, creatures, cars, and chaos objects related to the dictator. The challenges are really enjoyable, essentially letting you play minigames within Just Cause. Collecting all videotapes unlocks an OP helicopter, worth it if you want to clear all bases. Car races unlock new cars and boosts, wingsuit challenges upgrade your movement options, and grappling challenges make your gadget so powerful you can destroy a whole outpost without shooting your guns. The story isn't the reason why people buy Just Cause 3. The plot is a bit lame, and even the developers said that it is more a sandbox-based game and that the story only helps the player get ideas of the things they can do. The Just Cause series has always been full of great ideas like the grappling hook, parachute, and the new wingsuit that was brought in for Just Cause 3. The idea of being able to do whatever you want without having to deal with the consequences is a whole new experience. The map is probably one of the best things about Just Cause 3, from the oceans up to the mountains. The size of the map is 45 by 45 kilometers. The map is also built perfectly for messing around, like riding down a mountain in a boat or something crazy but fun like that. Mafia 2. Such an amazing story. I loved playing in the 1940s and 1950s, and I love the soundtrack. The characters in Mafia 1 were great, but in Mafia 2, they are amazing. The voice acting is superb, with a cast of characters that are both interesting and memorable. There are many fair arguments about how this game is flawed. However, you can see the foundations of a quality game being attempted. The story and world building are fantastic. It consists of elements from both The Goodfellas and The Godfather. Look, I understand that my perspective is highly biased and I may be looking through rose-colored glasses about the game, but I do think that it is a game that is criminally underappreciated. Mafia 2 is easily the best game in the entire franchise. It might even be one of the greatest open-world games ever made. The attention to detail is spot on, the way you can go to stores and buy stuff right from the shelf before Red Dead Redemption 2 ever did it, the pricing being accurate to the time. The story is great, but so was Mafia 1 and 3. If you're looking for a story-driven open-world game, just go for it.
Finish this job, we'll split up and look for other work.
All right.
Says here they want us to give him a message before we do it.
The Quarry. If you've played Until Dawn and loved it, this game is for you. The Quarry, set in a summer camp, is the perfect setting for a horror story. The camp contains several teenage counselors who serve as the playable protagonists. You control them all at different points in the tale. However, there is little time to actually manage the camp, as something unnerving is going on there. Instead of running an enjoyable camp, your objective is to stay alive. This isn't exactly easy, as many of your choices in this interactive narrative adventure can lead to deaths. Honestly, I think this game is awesome. The story is gripping, and the choices really do change how the game turns out. It makes you think before you make your decisions and makes you want to play it through again. I would definitely recommend this to anyone looking for a cool single-player game. Oh, and one of the coolest things they have added is the couch co-op option, and you can also play online co-op. I can't wait for them to do another one.
Blame everything on bears. Okay.
Do you got anything better? I mean, like zombies, aliens?
By the way, guys, before moving on to the next game, I want to say that I am close to hitting the 1K subs mark, so please consider subscribing if you like this content. Mafia Definitive Edition. Mafia Definitive Edition is an amazing game. Now, hear me out. This game is pretty linear, with the story divided into different chapters that you can wrap up in under 10 hours. This game is amazing. If you like The Godfather and GTA, this is like the Godfather theme made in the style of GTA. The city and environment look thriving, beautiful, and historic. The setting and atmosphere are so convincing. There are old-style bars, cafes, grocery stores, factories, offices, apartments, Chinatown, Little Italy, all over the city. It's not exactly open world because each mission starts up immediately and automatically after the last mission was finished, but you still get to see much of the world. If you like GTA missions and shooting, it's very similar. Maybe it doesn't quite have the same fluidity and polish as GTA, but it's still a lot of fun. I actually really like the way the guns feel. But the game has a free roam mode where you can just freely explore the beautiful city. I admit that there are not many activities you can do. The Mafia remake hardly utilizes the open world setting whatsoever. There are no optional activities. There should have been some side missions to make the world even more interesting. Nonetheless, I enjoyed it. The Order 1886. Although the game went through undue negative press before launch, largely due to claims of the game being only 5 hours, this is not really the case for a standard playthrough and is more representative of an early speedrun. It's a shame this happened, as it was partly to blame for low initial sales, most likely eliminating the chance for a sequel. The Order 1886 is not a bad game, especially in its current heavily discounted state. It is a highly cinematic third-person adventure set in a unique alternative history mixing Arthurian legend and steampunk. The gameplay is rather streamlined, and the game itself is very linear with no multiplayer. While this may turn some off as it doesn't hold much replay value, it is evident that all resources were put into laying the groundwork for a fleshed-out universe and a superb level of fidelity so early in the PS4's lifecycle. The core gameplay loop is made up of third-person combat, light exploration, and quick-time mechanics, as well as minigame mechanics such as lockpicking and the like. The Order 1886, a decade-old game, still looks better than most games. Released back in 2015 on the PS4, played this back when it came out and now again on PS5, but seriously, how does this game still look so good? Everyone at Ready at Dawn should be commended. I don't think another game since has matched the look of this. The film grain, depth of field, lens scratches, soft focus. This game has a cinematic, filmic look that has never been duplicated and looks simply amazing. If you're looking for intensely deep gameplay, a super long campaign, or a highly interactive world, you may come away a bit disappointed. However, those looking for a cinematic action experience with top-of-the-line graphics, excellent world building, characters, and story will find much to like. It is truly a shame how much negative press this game received, as not only did it hurt the game's sales, but has deprived us all of what would almost certainly have been an expanded and much improved sequel. With much of the groundwork done, The Order would have been able to focus on every element criticized in the first game easily. Those of us who enjoyed The Order can only imagine what would have been, had there not been an overblown pre-launch controversy spreading like wildfire. I highly recommend anyone to at least give this game a fair shake and explore a universe we may likely never visit again.
Is this the England we want? What must we do?
The Wolf Among Us was the first ever Telltale game I played, and oh boy, was it a treat. The game's pacing, writing, atmosphere, and general mythos are all top-notch. All of the characters are interesting, and it's honestly fun figuring out and identifying what folklore the character originates from. If you like mysteries, violent noir fiction, detectives, and their atmosphere, this game is for you. It does not have much to offer in terms of gameplay, being rather a simple point-and-click detective game at its core. However, the visual design of this game is so beautiful. I have to say, this game has the best comic-style cel-shading application I've seen in games so far. The music so soothing and alluring, and the characters and story so captivating that you will find yourself on a cliffhanger at the end of the first episode in no time, hungry for continuation. It is a mature story that takes place in a noir setting. The Wolf Among Us is a gritty take on various fairy tale characters that have somehow escaped into our world and are secretly living among us.
Had enough? At least make this up.
Beyond Two Souls is a must-play. Even now in 2024, 11 years after its first release, it's still up there with what modern story-driven interactive games have to offer us. What's special about it is the game's ability to keep you glued to the screen from start to end. A truly original story that, for the most part, is unpredictable and combines elements of suspense, drama, emotion, and action, often all at the same time. Some of the best and most fitting voice acting that syncs well with the scenes and cutscenes in the game, all tied together with a great soundtrack. This game is simply amazing. It's one of the best games I've ever played. Great portrayal of the main character and what she had to go through. The story is suspenseful, and the player is very curious about what will happen next. It's a very exciting game with many possible endings, beautiful and touching music, and not all choices are obvious. You have to be careful not to miss something important or to prevent someone from dying.
Gentlemen, I give you back your host. We'll talk later on that.
Quantum Break. I am very surprised that the game didn't make more of a splash when it came out than it did. Remedy is an amazing developer as usual, but this game had some amazing things going for it. An actually coherent and interesting time travel story, tragic characters, twists, and overall kept me way more hooked than I thought. Gameplay is simple yet a lot of fun and really satisfying. It really makes you feel like you're in a movie. The TV show is surprisingly well done and well acted. Much better than most TV today. Although, I'm not sure I like the show being pushed in between levels, and the platforming sections sucked. The controls were floaty and didn't feel good, and there was no skill to them. So why do them? It was odd why they were even in the game. Rarely had to use your brain to figure it out either. They could have done some crazy puzzles with the time stuff but failed. Overall, a really solid game that I wish more people got to experience. Not perfect, but so much more polished and filled with passion than 80% of the games as service crap that we get nowadays. Plus, it tried something really unique by melding the TV show with games. It wasn't a perfect fit, but I give them credit for trying. Check the game out if you haven't yet. Metro Exodus. To be 100% honest, I didn't like Metro Exodus when I first tried it. It took me restarting the game at least 5 times to stick with it to the end. I think one reason for this was because I had literally just finished Metro Last Light. Going from a more level-based shooter to such a dense open world so soon was very jarring. So, I put Metro Exodus down for a few months. But when I did finally finish the game, Metro Exodus became my favorite of the trilogy. I think the devs did a fantastic job translating the gunplay of the original titles to a more open-world framework. The Metro game's signature, I think, is how weighty and tense combat feels in claustrophobic environments. Metro Exodus seemingly abandoned much of the claustrophobia by going open world, except not really. You're still going to find yourself in these moments where you're surrounded on all sides by monsters and having to tiptoe around to avoid being torn to shreds. And you're still having intense shootouts. I played the latest upgraded edition on PC, maxed out everything for the most part. The game is a beast, a visual showcase. My only complaint is not getting a lot of the forest environment you encounter in the second-to-last area. My favorite section of the game is actually the last Metro section. There's something very haunting about seeing those old Russia apartment buildings covered in sheer ice and snow, wondering what could be staring down at you through those black windows, and then having to crawl through those subways and sewers. That last section was truly the signature on this love letter of a game. A 10 out of 10 masterpiece. Well everyone, subscribe and see you later.